Welcome everybody to our second in the season of WOT Online. This week we're talking about what happens after you leave rehab, how to manage after you leave rehab. We've assembled a panel of people with lived experience to join us. We're bringing you this with the combined efforts of Austin Health and AQA Spire peer support programs. I'll hand over now to Naz Erdem, who is our chair today. Just to remind you that if you are an attendee, you have the option of asking questions. If you look on your screen, generally on a computer, you'll find down the bottom of the screen, if you hover your mouse, you'll see Q&A. That's a great place where you can type in questions. There's also a chat function where you can share chat. Make sure that you're sharing it to all panelists and attendees if you want everybody to see it. And if you've got information that you're sharing, you can also send private messages to specific attendees. So just watch where you're sending your message. And there's also a function to raise your hand. So if you have difficulty typing and would like to make a comment, if you raise your hand, then I have the capacity to be able to bring your voice into the meeting. You can ask that question. So thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoy the session. I'm going to fade into the background now and hand it over to Naz from AQA Spire.
Thanks, Sal. So yeah, just want to repeat the topic for today. So how to manage when you leave rehab. So the main audience, the people listening are going to be people in rehab at the moment, or people that have been discharged recently, you know, within the last few years. So I'm not sure if everyone can see our names, but I'll just run through the names. So we've got Emly, we've got Lynne from the Austin, we've got Josh from AQA, Peter from AQA, Janette and Janette from Austin Health. Got Duke, Paul, Sal, who's just on. So that's us. For those that don't know me, I've got a C6 complete spinal injury. So I'm a quadriplegic after a result of diving into shallow water. So that was many, many years ago for me. I might just let everyone else just talk about what level of disability they've got and how they injured themselves, and then we'll continue from there. So Emly, do you want to go next?
I have a T4 spinal cord injury in 2018 and then left Royal Talbot in 2019. Yeah.
Thanks, Emly. Lynne, do you want to go next?
Yes, as soon as I learn how to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Lynne. I have a T12 injury as a result of a bus accident while overseas on holiday.
Josh?
Yeah, so I'm C6, C7 incomplete. I was in a car crash back in 2015.
Thanks, Josh. Peter?
Hi, everyone. I'm a C4-5 complete quadriplegic. I had my injury in 1999 from the result of motorbike versus tree.
And who won the tree?
No, I'm still alive. I won.
No, thanks, Peter. Janette and Janette, can't see Janette, but she'll pop up. There she is.
Hi, I'm Janette. I work in the spinal community integration service here. So we work with clients for the first 12 months after their discharge from rehab to help support them, I guess, transitioning back into life at home. Yeah.
And I'm Janette. I'm the spinal outpatient physiotherapist here at Talbot, and also doing some work with the outreach service at the moment as well.
Oh, good. Thank you. Duke?
Hi, everyone. I'm Duke. I'm a T10. I had a motorcycle accident in 2009 and went from 3 North to Royal Talbot, where I left in mid-2010. I'm an everyday bloke and sort of like doing lots of things with my time now.
You are. Thanks, Duke. And Paul.
G'day. I am a C5-6 complete quadriplegic. Had my accident in 1998. It was BMX, went over the handlebars.
Good. Thanks, everyone. So, as you can see, we've got like various people, people with different experiences online. So, thanks again, everybody. I just want to start off with, if you look back for when you were going through rehab, you know, we were there from anywhere from 3 months to 12 months plus in some circumstances. But do you feel like when you were going through rehab, you were ready to go home? It's always scary because rehab actually becomes your second home. And after being in rehab for such a long time, there is a fear of, you know, going back home, and you don't know if you've had enough rehab to gain enough independence and return back to the community. Just wondering if any people, if anyone wants to speak about that when they were going through, if they felt they gained enough rehab or they were ready to go home at that stage. Any volunteers?
I'll go if you want, Naz.
Yeah.
So I guess I was excited to be getting back home, but it's you know, it's very much an unknown world. So I think when you first go back home, it's both, you know, while physical, you're dealing with obviously the trauma of your injury, but also mentally, I found it quite, you know, everything just reminded me of myself of, you know, before my accident. So I think that side of things I felt quite hard when I first went back. But I definitely didn't think I was ready to leave, but you need to leave at some point. Hey.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't mind jumping in. Yeah, it was probably pretty scary for me. I was not quite ready, but ready in certain other ways. But, you know, to go into the big wide world as a quadriplegic was very different, you know, compared to being at Talbot, with everything was smooth and all the services were at your fingertips and, you know, everything around you. You know, but it was a transition and sort of did welcome it, but, you know, scary at the same time. And it was time to perfect your care team and get things in order and start moving on with what the things you can and can't do. Yeah.
For me, my big problem was that I didn't have anywhere to go after I finished rehab. So they had to find, I was after a motorcycle accident, I was a TAC person. And so I couldn't go home because my house couldn't accommodate me. It was a multi-story home and stairs and everything. So they put me into accommodation quite a way distant from, because I live in Melbourne, quite a distant suburb, probably about 3/4 an hour away from where I lived. So that was the dilemma for me, to expect that once I'd left the hospital where it was convenient for my family to come and visit and everything, it's going to a place where I wasn't able to have visitors easily because they had to travel so far. So that was one of the big considerations for me in leaving the hospital, that I was moving further away from my family and I didn't have a place that I knew where I had all the things that I had in the past.
I think that's good, Duke, and it's important to point that out, that you know, it's progression. And like yourself, I had to go into a Golden Chain motel for 4 months, and you know, it wasn't home, but it was yeah, it's all a bit of a journey. And I think it's important for those people in a rehab, Naz, to take that into consideration, that it's there's steps at a time.
Yeah.
No, I think it's
one of the other interesting things was that when you're in the hospital and when you're in rehab, everything is organised for you. You know, your physiotherapist, everything is scheduled. And if you're a person that isn't good at scheduling, it's very convenient. And so you go from a place that's totally organised, everything's done, your meds and everything, and you're going to a place where you have to learn to do those skills, which is good, but a bit daunting when you first go out.
No, exactly. I was going to say, when a lot of people haven't got the luxury of going straight home after they finish rehab, only because, you know, their house probably isn't suitable, so they have to sell up and move somewhere else, or build, or get modifications, major modifications done at home. So you go into temporary accommodation, and I mean, you know, that could lead to a lot of anxiety, and, you know, you just want to get on with life, and you can't until all that sort of stuff is sorted out. Does anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I was someone who also spent 364 days, almost a year, in temporary accommodation at Quest in Melbourne, waiting for my home in Euroa, which was 2 hours away, to be modified, which I'm now home, so it's good. But I was a bit nervous to be going to the Quest by myself and not with my family, and having new carers and never having had carers before. So, but it was I learnt a lot of things from that. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Emily, you finished, or you keep going?
Yeah, sorry, you keep going. You go.
Sorry for cutting you off. I just wanted to build on what you said there, and what Josh talked about earlier. You first, Emily, talking about adjusting to carers in the house that in your old lifestyle. That was an adjustment, going from the staff who know exactly what they're doing in terms of spinal cord injury, to a staff that may not get that experience of spinal cord injury. And what Josh was talking about before regarding being surrounded by your former life in terms of where you used to live, I found that very challenging. But yeah, leaving home leaving the Talbot, was quite terrifying for me, in terms of just, I was non-compensable, so I only had a small amount of care support provided by the council. And one thing I feel I really didn't have a plan about was how to fill my day. I got discharged. I was at Royal Talbot for 5 months. I got discharged in November, and whilst I was scheduled to go back to school at the end of January, I didn't have any plan for really how to fill my days in the preceding time, and also was unprepared in hindsight. I went home only with a manual wheelchair. I didn't have a power wheelchair at the time, and I wasn't aware of how isolating that was going to make me. I can manage a manual chair in and around the Talbot if it's all flat and smooth and easy to push around, but in amongst the community, which is not those things, I didn't realise how limiting it would be to be without a power chair. So, yeah.
No, thanks, Paul. You're right. You know, I mean, around the rehab unit, everything is flat. You don't have to find carpet and all that sort of stuff. So it's a good environment when you've got a disability and you need to push around and all that sort of stuff. When you go home, things could be different. Just wanted to mention, if anyone was listening to Paul there, it's a little bit crackly, but that's not actually his voice. His voice is not crackly. It's his computer. Yeah, we just to let people know that we've looked into that. Now, as I mentioned before, people when they're in rehab, you know, it could be from anywhere from 2 to 3 months to over a year. I was in rehab for 10 months myself. Just wondering how long people were in rehab for when they were going through. Emily, you mentioned it before, but do you want to just repeat it again?
Yeah, I was in Royal Talbot for 5 months. Yeah.
5 months. Yeah. And then you went into temporary accommodation for
364 days.
Well, that's a long time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Naz, with myself, I was at the Alfred for about 3 weeks in a bit of an induced coma there. Then at the ICU at Austin for about another 2 weeks. And then I was at Royal Talbot for a lovely 4 months.
Well, okay. What about you, Lynne?
I was total of 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that's about the average of people. How about you, Peter? When you went through, how long were you in rehab for?
I was in rehab for about 10 months at Royal Talbot. But
10 months.
prior to that, of course, in acute at the Alfred and Austin. So I started at Alfred, airlifted into Alfred, and then progressed and went to the Austin.
Mm. Yeah. Thanks, Peter. What about you, Duke?
I was at the Austin for a month. Then I went to rehab at Talbot for 3 months. And then I was in temporary accommodation for 7 months. And then they modified my home. And then I built a new home that would suit the wheelchair. So probably all up a year away.
Well, I think Emily's got the record. Thanks, Emily. By the time you get home. So I just
Yeah, definitely.
just wanted to move on to now after getting discharged. You know, everyone wants to be, you know, the new normal or whatever that is. But physio and OT and all that other stuff is really, really important. Just wanted to, well, just wanted to see what Janette and Janette have got to say about that. They set people up when people are discharged in their home environment for 12 months or so. So it's really important the work that they do in making sure that people know the local gyms and local physios and all that sort of stuff that they can get in touch with and work with just to make them more independent or continue their independence. So, I mean, one of the other guys might want to start things off by just talking about when they got discharged, you know, how did they go to the local gym or get in touch with a physio, so they got, you know, a regular physio routine?
Well, I didn't really, being a C4-5 quadriplegic, my ability came on a bit slow and I was fairly weak at the time. So I set up my physio team set up a pretty good program for me to go home with, and stretches and exercises, actually, which was Janette. And we did that together, and we videoed that, and we sort of got that ready, which we taught my carers at the time. But of course, this is 20 years ago, so quite a long time ago. But which I just have perfected and tweaked as my ability has changed and got stronger, and as I've needed to do different things in my life, I sort of exercised towards that. But just sticking to that and doing it with my carers was enough for me. I didn't really need. I did do some intense physio, but not a lot. But being a high quadriplegic, I could do with my carers stretching and just stopping spasm and getting stronger was good. You know, from the advice I got from the Austin.
I was very fortunate when I left Talbot. They organised a local in Fairfield, which is very, very close to Royal Talbot, and probably equidistant from my home, but a bit far from where my temporary residents were. They'd organised a physio, transport, everything, and caring to assist me to get to those places. So it was the fantastic team at Talbot really set me up beautifully from square one. So that,
oh, sorry, Duke, I thought you finished. But so that's a SCIS team, isn't it? The Spinal Community Integration Service.
Yeah, well, that was further on down the track, where they organised for my house and everything, because, as I said, I had to. My house wasn't really set up for, because it was 3 stories and things like that. So with circular staircases, which isn't good in a wheelchair.
No.
So I decided to build a house, and that's where they came in. They designed, they gave all the specs for the house, how it was going to meet my requirements, and that's the house I'm in now. It's absolutely splendid, because they knew exactly what I needed, the physiotherapist, The design team in Skip was amazing.
So I think to talk a little bit about the SKIS team and our role is really to support the clients as they transition back into the community, but also to support the therapists that are working with them in the community. And I think now it's great. We have more opportunity with funding like NDIS. So people are, when they discharge from hospital, are referred to a service by the inpatient team, generally speaking, and then we support those therapists to work with our clients. If they don't have a lot of experience in spinal cord injury management, we can go and do joint sessions with the therapists or consults over the phone to help upskill therapists. Did you have anything to add? Yeah, that's probably the main.
Yeah, because it's important to note that you guys are upskill the physios. Because I know for myself, I was doing my physio back in Warrnambool, and this is many years ago now. But I can recall I had a great physio that drove that way down to come and see you guys, and you walked them through some of the tips and tricks, I guess, how to do a transfer, which was very, at that stage, I thought beyond me. And it's a great service how you guys help have that, I guess, co-journey to help learn all those physio aspects.
Yeah, and with the benefits of the NDIS, meaning that there's a lot more therapists out there available now, but a lot of them don't have the skills necessarily to work or experience to work with spinal cord injured people. So we're finding that there is a lot more demand for support and education around spinal cord injury. So yeah, we're available to do that.
Now, thanks, Janette. Now, with the NDIS, just like everything else, there seems to be like so many more carer agencies, so many more physios. Can we call some of them dodgy? or do we just keep it with inexperienced?
I think we'll be polite. Inexperience. And I think the most important thing is majority of them are going to recognise that as well, and if they're seeking help, I think that makes a great team in terms of helping you out. Probably also to remember that obviously there's a lot of different stages as you're in your journey after rehab. I'm hearing definitely from all of you that nobody felt particularly ready when they left, and there's always going to be a transition, and that's why the outreach, the communities integration team is there to. It's a recognised point that you guys need more support in that transition. There are obviously stages within that early on you're still on your rehab journey. It's just continuing on at home, and some of your rehab journey is going to be about therapy. Some of it is actually about experiencing part of a different life and what the opportunities are in that life, and what new skills you need as a part of that. And then as things move on, it's also a lot about, what things do I want to be doing? How am I gaining skills to work towards that? How am I keeping healthy? How do I want that to look? And there's a lot of different options out there. And, there's different things for different people that are going to work as well.
No, good, thanks. So just while we're chatting, we were talking about housing before, how people have to go into temporary accommodation because there's no suitable accommodation. Even if you're looking to buy a house or even rent a house, where do you go? There's no one place where you can find something that's accessible. So the question was, why doesn't places like realestate.com, or is there a need for realestate.com or other organisations to advertise wheelchair accessible or accessible houses?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But occasionally you do find it mainstream to find housing amongst mainstream probably is a bit harder. And that mainstream meaning like domain and all that. But there are services that you can look into that, and off the top of my head, I don't know what they are. And they are few and far between. But the transitional is probably the gap that needs to be filled a bit better. And where there is Quest apartments and options and temporary things to get you by while you make your house accessible. So, it's looking outside, looking at your new mainstream, which is going through all your services and getting them together, finding suitable options. Yeah. So depending on your circumstances, your funding, all that, it's all depending on that, who can help you find accommodation at the time for an interim.
One of the questions asked was by Pradeep, and that is real estate com in having a listing of those houses that are accessible. Unfortunately, in my experience, they seem to not prioritize accessible houses as, I don't know, as much as they would be for fulfilling their quota in getting people into houses. And so I'm not sure whether there is a sort criteria in when people document their house characteristics as to whether there is one even for accessibility, like accessibility of 1 step or 5 steps or ramping, or that's a good question, I think, that's been asked.
I spoke to a couple of real estate agents when I was looking to buy a home, and I explained the things that I was looking for. I also explained that I was very eager, and if they came across anything, could they please let me know? And all they did was add me to their generic mail out, so that I got regular mail outs of houses that had come onto the market, but totally useless, because you'd look at them and I'd say to myself, but I told them I didn't want that or couldn't have that, and they've given it to me anyway. So I found that as a service to be really lacking.
Can we initiate something? Can we initiate something that would give accessibility criteria to houses?
I think that's a big project. We definitely can, but it'll take a while. I think it's going to be a matter of some of us guys getting together with other organisations, I think, and just getting in touch with websites like that and telling them there is a need and letting them do something about it.
A lot of modern houses these days are a lot better with accessibility, the way they think about it, with open plan living and stepless stuff. And but it's all changed, but it's a good idea to start thinking about all the different options.
Good. Right, so we'll move on to the next question. So we'll talk about people that return back to work and all that sort of stuff, because everyone wants to return back to work and have a so-called normal life again. But that's a big job, so we'll ask people about what that involves. If you get a 9-to-5 job, it's not simply like getting up at 8 o'clock or 8:30, jumping in the car and getting to work. There's a lot more involved in being able to do that, but we'll get onto that after we cover some other areas. The next area I want to speak to about modifications in the home, in your home. So when we're about to get discharged, we know that we need a ramp, we know we need an accessible shower and all that sort of stuff. Just wondering, depending on if it was TAC or NDIS, if the insurer, I guess, did you have to fight to get your modifications done to your house? Or did they say, no, you don't need it, and convince you that you didn't need modifications that you were told that you might need?
Well, one of the things I'd like to bring to attention is that with the TAC, you may have all the desire to get a modification done, but you need a clinical report that will give them the authority to proceed with it. So what you need to do is that if you've got a requirement, you need to have a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist say, or give a clinical report to the insurer that this is necessary for you to continuing normal life. I think Janette would probably be able to further give ideas about that.
I can.
Yeah, generally in terms of recommendations for modifications and housing, that tends to be more occupational therapy. Obviously, we are involved in recommendations for equipment and pieces like that. And yes, yeah, there has to be a with any funding body, there has to be clinical justification as to the need for that. And sometimes that involves lots of writing and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, is that funded by the insurance company?
In terms of the reports?
Well, you're saying it's quite timely effort to do that. Will the TAC or NDIS accommodate that charge so that if you need to worry about the expense associated with that? I probably, from our point of view, we're publicly funded, so we're obviously not billing for that type of thing. In the NDIS region, yes, if you need a report for or an application towards equipment, then you will use up some hours for the OT or physio to be doing that report and publication at the same time as well.
And if I can, Naz, to that point, I really encourage all the guys there, especially that the Royal Talbot, that so a bit background noise there. You know, that you really draw on I guess, you know, the SCIS team as well as us guys here at AQA, because when you do go back to some of your communities, even the OTs, you know, they may not have that much spinal cord injury experience. So it's really good to flesh out some talking points you can take back and really help set that narrative, as Janette alluded to earlier, because with all these insurers, there's a lot of background with writing and reports that need to be done.
Yeah. Myself, I was in a transitional home for probably about 5 years, which was completely set up. I moved straight out from hospital after rehab with my wife and son at the time. And then after that, where I got into a position where I can move or buy, purchase a home, I went through the private OT sort of thing and interviewed a lot of OTs to see, just to understand how the process would be and who would support me and understand exactly what I need. So I'm more of a specialised, I suppose, people who are usually talking about spinal cord injury and building homes and things like that. And so my funding body was TAC. So together, after I selected my O2, we drew up a plan and ideas and what we need. And then I started to select a house that would suit all that. And the OT was involved, TAC was involved, and we all agreed on that house would be fine. And then bought the house and then bought a plan together, which got submitted and worked out. And it was a bit of negotiation between that, what TAC would do, what I would do, and which was a process. And there's justification involved, but not too bad. Of course, it probably would take a bit longer because there's so many people involved. But in the end, they really did a good job. It was still in the same home, and I'm glad the job was done so well. A bit longer than I would have liked to have taken, but you know, in the end result was really good.
Yeah. When I first went home, it was before the NDIS, so I was non-compensable. I could have applied for $4,500 through what was aids and equipments at that time. I thought that was a bit of an insult, so I didn't even bother. And the modifications that I did, I had to pay out of my own pocket, which is quite different now. So I'm just about due to redo my second NDIS plan, and so I'll have OT hours in the capacity building part. So hopefully I can get an OT and an architect out to, I've still got bits of my house that need modifying, like kitchen benches really need to come down. But the difference is it's going to take much longer. So by paying for it myself, I said, right, I want that, boom, it was done. But in this process, you have to set the goal, and then you have to, in one plan, get the report done, and then in the plan after that, if the report is accepted, then get the money to actually do the modifications.
No, thanks for that. Duke, so just I'll ask you this question and we'll move on to the next one. So you had a three-story house. So I mean, was it an option to like get an elevator in there for you? I mean,
yeah. Well,
or did you or the TAC think that's too hard? You just need to sell it, go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, what actually happened was that as you entered my house was the lounge, and well, I had a number of lounges, and then it was on the same level as the kitchen and family eating area, and then you had to go up to a circular staircase to go up to the bedrooms and like a parents' retreat area, and then there was en suites and all sorts of things. Now it was a circular staircase going up. And they thought, because I actually had a downstairs where like a workshop area and everything, which I wanted to use. And so they said, look, it's going to cost us, I think it was nearly 160,000 or something for the lift. And so they came in and said, okay, we're going to, I had a gigantic, big, large study. So they craned in an additional room into the side of my house. It was about a 30 or 35 square house that I had for me to use as a bathroom and shower and toilet and everything, but it was just not really good. So
it wasn't realistic, so it never went that way.
So the skip team came, I said, right, enough's enough. So I had another house which I bulldozed, and then I got the skip team to come in and design bathrooms, doorways, everything, kitchens and everything, and they installed the lift because it wasn't a flat block. So they put a lift into my new house that allowed me to go into a garage and up into the house.
No, good, thanks, Duke.
And they pay for that.
Emily, you had to pay for that, okay. Emily, you had something to add to that as well, didn't you?
Oh, I just had something today to say about modifications and everything. I'm with TAC, and it took a long time to happen, and that's because the first proposal they said for the modifications, because I went home with Mum, it wasn't going to work for us. Like even the OT, so that my own OT sorts agreed that it wouldn't work. And then we had a big mediation with TAC, and then they decided the house wasn't modifiable, and then suddenly it was again modifiable, but it's all good now. So it was about different plans and it was modifiable. My point is, fight for what you believe in. Even if they say, no, that's good enough, just fight for what you think will work for you, because you know what will work for you. So, and me and Mum, we fought for our home, and now it's great and I love it. It's really easy for me to adapt to, like, it works well. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Good point. I fully agree. There is parts where you have to negotiate and work through the deal. What was fair and reasonable, or what's important to you, your home and your family, because your family have to live there as well. So, you know, you go through the process. It can be a drawn out process, but it's a process that in the end is really worth it and worth working through. I get really involved work it out. Keep it easy, keep it happy, and go through the process and get your house in order.
Thanks for that. In 2 weeks' time, we're actually going to talk about home modification. So we might leave that there on that subject, if that's all right. Josh, you had something to say?
No, you're onto it, Naz. I was going to say I'd like to hear Emly's thoughts, and yep, you did it.
Yeah, no, good, thanks. So we've got about, because this is only we've only got about 20 minutes or so left before this Zoom is going to shut up on us. Just want to speak to people about not only just returning back to work, but if you're looking at returning back to work, it doesn't have to be a full-time job, it could be a part-time job, but you know, going home where you need carers. Let's get into some more detail about that, you know, because a 9-to-5 job doesn't mean, you know, like I said before, you wake up at 8:30 and you go to work and you're back at 5:30, you know. I mean, you've got your morning routine, your bowel bladder routine in the morning or night. It does take a bit of time to get ready in the morning, so it's quite hard, you know, but after you do it a while, you figure it out, it becomes habit. And just want to
I can speak my thing if you want, Naz. In particular for me, I was 18, so I was only working at a Woolworths, and I guess I didn't really have a full path set out. So, and for myself, I took pretty much 18 months off to just work on my independence to whatever that was going to be. And so I was doing physio 3 times a week. And, you know, I think it's an important note for the guys in at Rehab just to remember that, you know, as Janette and all these other guys have said, it's a bit of a progression. And, you know, it's good to set goals, but then also allow yourself time to get to there.
No, thanks. I want to ask Paul this question. Like, he's like amazing, I think, you know, especially working in a full-time job. Like, he sets himself goals, and he's just really good, you know, just going back to uni, getting educated, getting his degree, then looking for the work that was pretty full-on, you know, full-time job. He realised, okay, it wasn't what I want, it's not what I enjoy, so he sort of resigned from that position and looked for another job. So, are you happy to talk about that, Paul?
Sure.
And also talking about like getting ready and all that sort of stuff, you know, because, you know, like I said, it's an effort, you know, getting to work and all that stuff.
Totally, and part of my effort related to my bladder and bowels, that was hugely important. And making sure they were reliable for me to be able to work. The effort to become employed was huge, and it involved a lot of setbacks and a lot of persistence. And in the end, when I first started work, it was through family and friend networks that I got my start. I just found the important thing to do is to start somewhere. Didn't have to be in a dream job. I'd work things out thereafter. It was just important for me to get to work. My care arrangements at the moment start each morning at 6 a.m. So have my carers come, and that's when my day starts. If not earlier, some days it's even 5:30, depending on what time I'm going to be in at work. So there are supports and people who can come in at that time to get you up, even though that's not, well, certainly when I was at Taliban, it wasn't advertised as being able to be possible.
Thanks, Paul. What about study? I mean, it's not just work, but it's going back to school as well.
Yeah, it's having, as I said, when I first went home, I didn't have a plan on how to fill my days until school started. And getting back to school was great because it was, in a way, a little distraction from having a disability. It gave me something else to to invest my time and my mental energy on. That was huge. It was a learning experience itself, learning how to learn as a quadriplegic. But it was hugely important. Like I am as a C5-6 quadriplegic, I am going to be an office-based employee. I can't rely on my body to work, and therefore I needed to get educated and to learn the skills necessary for me to become employed. So, and also it gave me the opportunity to do those things, to develop the routine, to develop the bowel and the bladder routine to allow me to eventually work. Because in many ways, education, be it school or university, is going to have similar time demands. Like at the moment, I said pre-COVID, I was working in the city. And in the city, at Flinders Street Station, there is the Traveller's Aid service, which is stationed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. With support staff who can do basic personal care things like emptying leg bags. So if I have been in the city and there has been a time where, for whatever reason, I am in the need to have my bag drained and I can't do it myself, or I haven't got myself a situation where I can set it up myself, I can pop in there at any stage and get my bag emptied. And that service has been really beneficial because the best plans don't always go to don't always happen in the end. So having them as a fallback in the city has allowed me to much more confidently be at work.
No, thanks, Paul. How about anyone else? I mean, does anyone else want to talk about if they try to return back to work or go to study and what's involved? Be good to hear about that.
I'll be very, very quick. I'll be very, very quick. Being in my mid-60s, it's slightly different for the younger chaps out there. You've sort of like, you live your life and you've got all your routines and everything happening. And so now, for the last 10 years, I've had somebody coming in every day, helping me with bowels and bladder and stuff like that, getting into bed and getting changed and all the rest of it. And it's slightly different, and it's you're sort of like, just your first motive is to get your body right before you try to get your head right. And it's probably it's a very subtle flavour that you've got to reach for both of those, because you want to be able to live your life physically as well as exercise your mind. And it's a real challenge to have a really good balance for that. And I think that's what Paul was saying, you know, like you need to do that.
No, thanks, Duke. Just wanted to just talk about carers a little bit more. We've got less than 10 minutes to go. So, I mean, if someone was going through the Royal Tower and, you know, needs to, like, I think you can never be too proud, especially if you think you're independent and all that sort of stuff, and want to go home, don't want to have carers and all that sort of stuff. I think it's important to put those things in place just to make sure that when you do go home, you know, if you feel like you don't need care, then you can ease your care off, or, you know, they're there to make your life easier. So just want to see what people's thoughts are on getting a carer. A carer is not someone that's given to you. You know, you're actually the employer of a carer, so you get to interview people to make sure that they're going to be suitable for the position. Does anyone want to speak about that?
I'll just quickly say, just being patient and being really clear with your communication with carers. I mean, I have had mostly good experiences with carers, and to create an environment. I've always tried to create an environment where it's easy for carer to look after me, and because I know if I create an environment that the carers like being here and like looking after me, then it's going to make my life a lot easier.
No, thanks, Paul. How about you, Peter? You going to say something about that as well?
Yeah, care is a big part of my life, and I use them in many different ways, from just getting me up early to go to work, or to go and do my hobbies in sports or whatever that may be. And it might be just community stuff or whatever that may be, but carers are a fairly big part of my life, and I really appreciate what they do for me, and wow, how much they do, and the flexibility that you can have with the carer in your life, because, you know, I also have a family that we all live together, so carers have to work in and around that, and the family have to get used to that. It's a process that is not normal from how we used to be, and then all of a sudden we have an injury and we have to have carers in our life to do all these sorts of things here. But work with it, and sort of Paul's brought up some great points. Be really open and transparent, and talk, work through it. Every carer is different, so some carers are really good at doing some things and don't like to do other things. So you work your team around that constantly to keep everybody happy, and see who likes doing what, and who is the person that likes coming at 6 o'clock in the morning to get you out of bed and shower you and do all those sorts of things. And once you sort of get used to organising your team, how to work with you, it turns into a fairly seamless process. But you need to read that and sort of really assess that amongst your carers, keep open conversations, who wants to do what, who is happy, and what's going on. Yeah. But I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning as well, and work 3 days a week, and have lots of hobbies. At the moment, COVID-19 is slowing things down a bit, but I just do different things around the house. I've got more into my garden, just doing bits and pieces around the house, cooking, you know, just all sorts of stuff. Yeah, but yeah, Josh, go.
Now, like, I've got a question for you, Naz, because all these guys that are working, and you work 5 days a week, but they're talking about getting up early, and I know for sure you're not getting up at 5:30. So I think it's an important note for the guys to know that, you know, some of their routines are really set around the mornings at the Royal Talbot, and they do a fantastic job to, you know, get us into a routine. But I know, you know, some people can move them to the afternoon. Isn't that right? Or to the evenings, rather.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if I had a choice between work and waking up at 5:30, I wouldn't be working. I'm not a morning person at all. So I followed all the recommendations while I was going through rehab. And of course, because of convenience, you do your routine in the morning. As soon as I got home, I changed my routine to night, because I'm not a morning person. I just want to wake up and do what I'm going to do, either go to work or whatever. So now I shower, do my routine at night. In the morning, hear the bell, I can press snooze as many times as I want, and know that's not going to take me a whole time to get out of bed and just get on with things. So yeah, and that's what happens after rehab. You learn what's going to work for you. So you don't have to do your routine in the morning. You can play around with it, do it at night if it works better for you.
Yeah. Can I say one thing about carers? I found I'm very lucky, because I've had one carer actually for my total time, and other carers, but I've found it works if you make it a partnership with them. That and they are a major part of the way you live your life. And as soon as you accept that you're not an employer and they're an employee, which is that's where it changes. And I found that when you work like it's a partnership, because if you've got a family life that someone comes into your home, there's no such thing as public holidays, days off, or whatever it is. When you have this injury, 24/7, all the time. And so that's what you need to take into account with carers. It's a full-time, no holidays, nothing. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. Sal, I might get you to finish off just by asking people like a take-home message or take-away message, you know.
Yes, thanks, Naz. We're into our last couple of minutes. Just as we sign off, I'll just remind people who are listening today, we'd really like your feedback. You'll get a follow-up email having attended the session. So if you can send us any of your thoughts, ideas for future sessions, that would be great. Any ways that we can improve these sessions, that would be much appreciated. So just going around the panel, your last final comments, keep them very brief. Your tips or tricks, Emily.
When you're in rehab, I felt like people were deciding my life. So when you get out of rehab, you get to decide your life and make decisions about your life. So be involved in all the decisions about your life that people have. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Paul, tip or trick?
Yes, hit on that with Emily. You know, you felt other people were making decisions for you, and what is there to find, try to think about things that fill your day. Yeah, that would be my advice, and I try to fill my day with as many things as possible.
All right, thanks, Paul. And it was a little crackly, but I think you're saying find things to fill your day. Think of things and ways to fill your day. Thank you. Yep. Peter, final tip or trick?
Yeah, yep, just really get into your routine, work it out, perfect that, roll on from there, take on challenges, and just get everything, all that stuff you got to do when you get home from rehab. It can be quite a bit. Chase it all up, get involved, make sure it's seen to, and have total control of it. Move on and perfect it, and take on new challenges and grow.
Thanks, Peter. Lynne?
Yes, so once you've got your dream, when you know what you want, plan for it. But as Emily said, be persistent about it. And as Paul said, you're going to need some patience because it does take time.
Thanks, Lynne. 25 words or less. Duke, your tip or trick?
Be kind to yourself and those that surround you. Work as a team and take responsibility for your situation.
Beautiful, thank you. Janette and Janet, do you have any final thoughts?
Sorry, I was having
There
trouble.
you go now, we can hear you.
Yep, okay. I just think it is a journey that you are going on as you return home from rehab. Don't expect to get it everything right to start with. You will have to find out what works for you, and as the rest of them are saying, I think it's very important to find out what works for you and what works for your family.
Thank you. And Josh?
Yeah, just following on the same theme, it's a journey, and both physically and mentally, there's going to be highs and lows. But as Emily and Lynne have said, be persistent and take accountability when you go home. It's your choice and your life.
Great, thanks, Josh. And Naz, a final word from you.
Words. Yeah, Antonio, who's not on the panel here, we're going to get him on, but didn't work out. He made some great comments. But my final word is you don't have to do it alone. Get in touch with the Austin Hospital and AQA Victoria. We've got 100 or so volunteers or mentors who can give you advice. They can help you along. You don't have to be doing it alone. It's been done before, and we're here to help.
Thanks, Naz. And just to tie it up, we did have a comment from Antonio that under Fair Work law, employers are within their rights to ask for flexible work conditions. So you can structure your routine around what works for you rather than what works for the workplace. And we did have a comment from Nick. Sorry we didn't get to you, Nick. We ran out of time, but Nick's really advocating the use of the independent living units in the rehab here at Talbot. And they should be used in helping to design modifications in the home. They're a great way to sort of trial things out. So our time is done. Thank you very much for coming along today, all of you that have attended. Thank you to our panelists. Really appreciate your time that you've put in. We've recorded this session and we'll post it on YouTube via Spire in the next couple of days. Thanks again. Join us in 2 weeks. We're running another session online, and the session will be around home modifications, and we're compiling photos of the modifications that people have made in their homes that they find really helpful. So hopefully we'll be able to flash them up on the screen. You'll be able to see them as people talk to some of those modifications. So thanks again. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye,
Ciao.
crew.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See you, Paul.
Bye-bye.